Title: I found out I wasn't my parents' child, the day they left me at a gas station. I was 15 when it happened. We were on a road trip to visit my aunt, or so I thought. Just a few hours out, we stopped at a remote gas station in Utah. My dad said he needed to grab something from the trunk and asked me to go inside and get snacks for the three of us. I remember asking what kind. My mom smiled, and said, "Whatever you want, honey." When I came back out, arms full of snacks, the car was gone. I stood there for nearly an hour before the gas station attendant came out and asked if I was okay. I wasn't. I was panicking, trying to convince myself they'd just gone to get gas or had turned around the block. But I knew they weren't coming back. The cashier let me use their phone. I called my mom. It went to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Called my dad. Straight to voicemail. I kept calling for hours until the number was disconnected. Not turned off. Disconnected. Eventually, a sheriff showed up. The gas station attendant must have called them. I told him everything. I expected them to launch a full manhunt. Instead, they asked if I had any other relatives. I gave them my aunt's name, the one we were supposedly going to visit. When they called her, she hesitated before answering. And then she sighed and said, "I was wondering when this would happen." That sentence changed my life. The sheriff put me in touch with child services. I was placed in a temporary foster home. No one ever came for me. Not a single person. I wasn't even mad, not yet. I was just numb. I stayed quiet for days until the foster mom, let's call her Karen, sat me down with a folder. It was thin. Just a few pieces of paper. My real birth certificate. A letter from a social worker dated back to when I was 2. And a court document terminating someone's parental rights. That's when I learned I had been adopted, not officially, not legally. More like taken in by distant relatives after something happened to my biological parents. But here's the thing, I wasn't supposed to know. They had never told me. I had grown up thinking these people were my real mom and dad. Karen looked as shocked as I was. "I think," she said slowly, "they didn't want to raise you. I think they felt like they had to." Turns out, my real parents died in a car accident when I was just a baby. My father's half-sister, the woman I called mom, was asked to care for me. And she did. Barely. From what I later pieced together, she and her husband had resented me from the beginning. I ruined their plans. Their finances. Their peace. But instead of giving me up legally, they kept me. Maybe for the benefits. Maybe out of guilt. Or maybe just long enough to ditch me when I got old enough to figure it out. The first year on my own nearly killed me. I was placed in a group home for a few months until I turned 16. After that, I was basically on my own. I lied about my age to get a dishwashing job at a diner that paid me under the table. I slept in abandoned cars or under bus stop shelters. One night, I passed out from hunger in a public park and woke up with a cracked lip and someone rummaging through my pockets. I didn't even own a backpack. I kept everything I had in a grocery bag tied shut with a shoelace. The shame wasn't just in being homeless. It was in how invisible I became. People didn't look at me. I was a teenager, but they saw me as a threat or a nuisance. I started talking to myself, just to remember what my voice sounded like. I stole granola bars from gas stations just to keep my stomach quiet. At 17, I scraped together enough to rent a room in a shared house with 4 other people. One of them was a guy named Darren who was 10 years older and had just gotten out of jail. Sounds sketchy, I know, but he was the first person who treated me like I mattered. He taught me how to budget. Helped me open a bank account. Showed me how to write a basic resume. We used to sit on the porch and talk about life like it wasn't something we were always fighting to survive. He called me kid and made me feel safe. When he got a job in another city, he left me a note and $50 in an envelope. That was all he could give. But it meant the world. By 22, I had a steady job doing customer service for an online retailer. Boring stuff, but it paid rent. I worked night shifts and took online classes during the day. I had no social life, no weekends. Just goals. I didn't want to be anyone's success story. I just wanted to never feel disposable again. It took years. But I built something. A degree. A job in the nonprofit sector. A small apartment I paid for myself. I had health insurance. A dentist. A nameplate on my desk. That's when the letters started. The first one was handwritten. Shaky. From my mom. She said she had seen a photo of me online, something from a local charity event. She said I looked happy, said she was proud. Said they'd always loved me. Then came the ask. They were in debt. Dad had heart issues. Their trailer was being repossessed. And since I'd gotten so far with their help, maybe I could help them now. Even just a few thousand. To make up for what we gave. They said I owed them for 15 years of food, shelter, clothing. For the nights they stayed up worried when I was sick. For sacrificing everything to raise me. I stared at that letter until my eyes went blurry. I never wrote them back. But a month later, I got another letter, this time typed. From a lawyer. Apparently, they were pursuing reimbursement for care provided from ages 2 to 15. They included an invoice. An actual invoice. $112,348.17. Broken down like a hospital bill. Meals, $27,000. Lodging, $44,000. Clothing, $10,000. Emotional labor, $6,500. And my favorite line, emotional toll of teenage years, negotiable. I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because it was so insane I couldn't cry. I sent it to a lawyer friend from the nonprofit. She nearly choked on her coffee. They don't have a legal leg to stand on, she said. Just nerves of steel and the audacity of a crocodile. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted to shut them down completely. So I did. But I wasn't done. I wasn't just going to ignore them and hope they went away. Not this time. I took that invoice, that absurd list of charges for emotional labor, and forwarded it to my lawyer friend. She passed it to her firm's senior counsel, who took one look and said, "Oh, we're going to bury these people." We filed a formal cease and desist. Not just for harassment, but also for attempted fraud and emotional distress. Then we subpoenaed old records. Turns out, during the years they raised me, they claimed me as a dependent on their taxes, all while collecting benefits that were supposed to go toward my trust fund after my biological parents died. Benefits I never saw. We had receipts. Bank statements. Even a witness, my aunt, the one who had said I was wondering when this would happen. She gave a sworn statement. It wasn't just abandonment. It was theft. Exploitation. They hadn't raised me. They'd used me. My lawyer drafted a civil suit that laid everything out, the fake invoices, the benefit fraud, the years of emotional abuse, and the psychological trauma of abandonment. It wasn't about money, it was about record. I wanted this on paper. We offered a deal, walk away forever, or we go to court and make it public. They caved in less than 48 hours. Their lawyer emailed back, practically begging us to settle quietly. They agreed to drop everything. Sign a no-contact agreement, waive all claims. In return, I wouldn't go public. But here's the thing, I still own my story. I just don't need to say their names. Because I won. Not just legally, morally. I went from the kid they left at a gas station to the man who stood in front of them with proof, power, and a spine they never gave me the chance to grow. They can't touch me now. Not with their lies. Not with guilt. Not with money. They gambled that I'd stay broken. But I bet on myself, and I didn't just survive. I built a life they'll never be invited into. Let me pause here. If you're still listening, thank you. And if this story touched something inside you, maybe hit like, or subscribe, or share it. Some people need to hear they're not alone. Now back to it. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I've rebuilt something real. I help teens aging out of the foster system find housing, jobs, therapy. I talk to kids who are exactly where I used to be. I don't tell them it'll be easy. I tell them it's possible. Then last week, a girl named Alina came in. 15 years old. Thrown out for being pregnant. Terrified. Defensive. Angry. She sat in my office, arms crossed, eyes burning. I told her, "You're not broken. You're just bruised." She blinked like no one had ever said that to her before. I still don't know what healing means. I'm still figuring it out. I still wake up in the middle of the night sometimes thinking I hear tires screeching outside my window. But I know this much. Family is not who raises you. Family is who shows up. And the day they left me at that gas station? They didn't abandon a child. They released someone stronger than they ever imagined.